now. So, welcome to the stage, Bob Doyle. It's an absolute privilege and pleasure to have you on here. And as we know, everything's about thoughts become things. How do thoughts become things? And that's the new movie that you're actually involved in at the moment. And that's why we're having this conversation today. So I've already put something on about you from YouTube. I've already put that on Facebook so people can go and have a look at that. It'll be down that way rather than up that way. And but Bob, if you could explain who Bob Doyle is, that would be wonderful.
Okay. Well, so I am best known as a teacher of all of this stuff, law of attraction and so on. I was in The Secret. And so that's really what put me in front of a ton of people. But before that, I truly had no aspirations to be in the personal development industry or to speak on a stage or any of it. I wanted to be a broadcaster and to entertain and just be silly and be a goofball. That I knew that from when I was just a little kid getting in trouble at school for basically doing that, right? So I studied, all of my courses of study were around telecommunications and getting ready for broadcasting. And I went out in the world and I did that for about 7 years. And it didn't turn out to be the avenue of creative self-expression that I wanted it to be. And as I later learned, that's really what drives me, is creative self-expression. And I also believe that it's what drives everybody. And when we're not able to do that for any number of reasons, certainly some of which we'll talk about today, that's when the trouble begins. That's when we get depressed and worrisome and lose our sense of value and so on. So, because we're not expressing who we are truly here to be. So my whole life became about, well, how can I do that? Because it wasn't going to be radio, at least not at that time. So that led me down this path of just trying a bunch of different things. I have a lot of things I like to do. You know, audio production was a background. Voiceover is something that I still do, but computer animation and photography and music. And it was like all of these things. How do I do all of these things? So that's an ongoing question, by the way. It's something I still am juggling all of these things, because how do I be out in the world and let people know who I am? But in essence, who I am is I'm a champion for creative self-expression, although I never would have used that kind of terminology before I got into this world, when I realized you have to have labels for things. So that's what I am. I'm a champion for creative self-expression. But the law of attraction is a natural, it goes with that conversation, because when we are truly expressing ourselves creatively and being who we want to be without all the noise inside, then the law of attraction and all of that, thoughts becoming things, it all just sort of happens naturally. So that's what drives me. I have an entertainment and broadcasting background, and I like to do things creatively, and I like to have a lot of fun, and I like to infuse this message, law of attraction or creating your life by design, with all of that.
I find it interesting you say, well, we have to come up with a title for ourselves. I do find that really funny, because I think I've changed my title since I've left a job. I've made up title, I think, every 6 months, because I'm like, well, I don't. So when people ask me, what do you do, Sheena? I go, I don't know. I ask myself that every day.
Yeah, I do a lot of things, So yeah, and that's always been a struggle. And actually for a long time after The Secret, it became a real problem, because for me personally, because the success of that film came so out of nowhere, really, for me, and just millions of people suddenly knew who I was where they didn't the day before. And so that changed my business a lot, but I also had it in my mind, and from some feedback that I got, that there was a certain expectation of who this Bob Doyle character should be, right? And the broadcasting and the goofiness and all the crazy stuff I do in the Bob Doyle show and other things that I do doesn't fall into that category. And I've had people tell me, people who hire me for speaking, that they just want the guru. That was the word, right? And so during that time, if you look at any of the marketing or interfacing I did with the community, I was very generic. I was just sort of, hi, I'm Bob Doyle, featured teacher in the film and book this year. I was Joe Announcer, I was using that skill set, but who I wasn't really coming through. And after a couple of years, I really started to feel that. And I had to reassess, how am I going to do this, still enjoy it, and make a difference?
Well, we'll have to have a conversation about that, because I'd like to know that as well. I mean, that's one
Yeah.
thing to say about self-expression, is that, I'm certainly finding that as well now in lockdown, where it's just like, I feel like I needed to be out of the house to express myself.
Yeah.
And now it's expressing yourself in front of a computer, which is a whole different, and I find even that a little bit frustrating, that, how do you express yourself, just in this world at the moment?
Well, fortunately for me, this is an area of my expertise. I mean, because I have been goofing around with live streaming since it was a thing, and finding sort of my voice, taking the silliness that I did on radio, hopefully maturing a little bit over 25 years or so, and then trying to come up with something that is fun and really play with all the toys that technology allows me to do. Not everybody's going to do what I do to express themselves, because not everybody has the history of playing with all these goofy toys. And I'm like integrating the computer stuff and the audio stuff and everything to create a show or an experience that, that truly allows me to express just about whatever I want. So I'm a huge proponent of live streaming, and obviously it's huge now, bigger than ever before. But it is a great opportunity for people to start sharing themselves with the world in an authentic way, and letting the tribe that they want really attract themselves. Because if you're not doing that, if you're not interfacing with them on a regular basis, or you're only doing it through pre-recorded videos or email, they have it's a limited view of who you are. And so, and in my experience, it was like I was very generic in my appeal, because that's what I thought I wanted to do, right? It's just like, here's some basic law of attraction stuff for everybody, right? But the more I fine-tuned who I was being, then the tribe that I would attract was much more engaged, much more fun. It was just like, whenever I had an offer, for example, I didn't feel like I was selling it. I was just sharing it, because now we're all friends. We really, truly feel family, because through a live streaming, I was able to create an authentic relationship. And that allowed me, and to tie it all into thoughts becoming things, and just the quality of our thoughts. Imagine the years, every time I open my mouth to interface with somebody, when I'm having an inner conversation around, I'm not really enjoying this. This isn't really who I am. And I don't feel like I'm expressing that's going on in the background the entire time. So what do you think the results were that I was getting during that time, right? They were very congruent with that line of thinking. So I knew I had to get back into alignment. Even if forget the success in business or whatever, it was just, I got to enjoy my days again. If I can't do it my way, I'm not going to do it. That kind of thing.
Actually, I think that's where I'm at the minute. And it's funny how it takes you to get to being 50, Bob, before you actually start to go, oh, who am I? I've forgotten. I used to be fun back then. Then I've forgotten the fun in the middle bit here. So how did you get involved in The Secret? Because obviously then that's how you got involved in How Thoughts Become Things is, what's that journey?
Well, basically, as I was doing my searching for answers for myself, when I had my own aha moments about the law of attraction and the science of it, and recognized that it didn't really matter what I was saying out loud. It was really what was going on inside at a subconscious level. That's a much more powerful transmitter of communication, of what's really going on than what you're saying out loud. When I was able to face that, my struggles with money were coming from many, many years of watching my mom struggle with money and hearing her talk about it. And so my relationship with I was wired during those years to think that there's never enough money. You're always going to be in debt, and it doesn't matter whether you like what you do or not. You just have to have a job. She was a teacher who hated her job, right? So that was my wire. Yeah, it's familiar. Yeah. So when I had my aha moments, I had learned enough about, technology and broadcasting. I was able to combine my skill sets to create the first iteration of my first online program called Wealth Beyond Reason, which was like 5 ebooks that other people wrote, a couple of things that I had recorded based on my aha moments from this. I was more of a facilitator. Right. I wasn't labeling myself as the expert when I first started. I was just the facilitator, and here's my understanding of it. So I put that out there. But as soon as I did that, I realized that I need to make a more powerful statement and this is leading up to The Secret. I need to make a more powerful statement about who I am in this, not what I aspire to be, not one day, but today. Right. So my communication to myself became about who I am, is that I'm, a powerful communicator, powerful and effective communicator of these principles to as many willing, open minds as possible. Like, I was very clear. I don't want to debate, try to convince, no, it's real. I don't have time. I don't want to. Somebody else can do that if that's their thing. I want to help people who want to be helped. Right. So that helped me to define the program better. But it also, once I stepped into that powerful state of being that's when I got really all the downloads of like my own insights, my own ahas. And the program it went from 95% other people's stuff to the other way around, where I was just like creating all of this content. So the program grew over the course of years with interviews and just all sorts of stuff that I had done. And when Rhonda Byrne was doing her search for law of attraction teachers or information on the law of attraction, I'd been out there for about 3 years. And so she found me, I guess, however people find people, and looked at how I approached it from, I guess, kind of as scientific as we need to be and a more grounded approach. And I think she just said, I need that voice in this film. And so there was going to be only 8 teachers in the film originally. And I was one of the 8, which would have been amazing. But then she went and met the whole Transformational Leadership Council. And, now suddenly there were dozens of interviews, and it was honed down to the 20 something that there are in there. But that's how it came to be. I was just one of the teachers who had information out there with a voice that I think she wanted to include. Mm-hmm. That's the tactical, practical way. The more law of attraction way is, I feel like we were in complete energetic alignment with our mission. Who she was a person who wanted to get these concepts into as many willing minds as possible as well. Her vision was just freaking huge. Mine was just, I just want to enjoy what I do every day, right? Hers was, we're going to impact all these people. And obviously I wanted to make an impact, but the alignment was great. So it was just a natural, energetic fit.
And what specifically is it that we hear from you in How Thoughts Become Things? What's your part in that movie?
The conversation around rewiring and I'm not the only one saying it, but it happens to be where I have evolved my message anyway. I've been giving webinars and things on rewiring for a while, even before the movie came around. But it was perfect timing. So I talk a lot about the biology of all of this, as opposed to years, 2 decades, I've been talking about the energy and sort of the invisible, because that's exciting and it's quantum physics and stuff. But a lot of people have, not everybody can grasp that. So I'm just starting right here with the biology, the neuroplasticity stuff that you can absolutely point to science to. There's no big leaps of faith about how our wiring is created, and then how we can change it so that we can literally create a version of ourselves that is going to be much easier to attract the things that we want, whether or not you believe the energy thing, or whether just how you show up in the world and interact with people and the action you take.
I love it all. I mean, once you start reading it and start to get involved in it, I mean, you just go on a deep dive. There's book after book after book about all it, and it's just so fascinating. Love it.
There's no shortage of information anymore. But back in the day when I was in my search, I mean, it was like, if somebody had a Wealth Beyond Reason program or The Secret or something like that back then, I mean, it would have made my life so much easier. But I mean, part of my journey is my journey, and that's just kind of how it is. So I've always been, because it has been a roller coaster, even since The Secret. Things happen. We're all human. There's nobody in that film who has a perfect life every day, unless they say it's all perfect, which is true, but you know what I mean, right? So we all come up against our stuff. We all will always hit new barriers of our wiring. Is no matter how successful we are, we get to a point where more is outside of our energetic or our wiring comfort zone, and we can choose to go for it and expand it even further, or we can be complacent, which won't last very long, because then we'll start to feel, compressed. Because it's since you've worked with Bob Proctor, because of the science of getting rich, that the nature of the universe is expansion, always expansion. So, and we too. So if we stop, if our vision doesn't grow, we are going against our very nature, and it shows up. We feel it big time. It shows up in our bodies. It shows up in our emotions and our psychology, how we interact with people, our moods, our health, everything. So we're here to create. We're here to grow. We're here to generate these amazing thoughts with our imagination and so on, to move all this energy into action if you want to go down that road, or at least to change and modify how powerfully we're showing up in the world. We're meant to do these things.
And I love, just when you mentioned Bob Proctor, that I love what Bob actually says. He says that, I'm only scratching the surface, and he's 86 this year. And it's just like, if he's only scratching the surface, what did I think I knew in the first place?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. There's so much, and when you get right down to it, nobody really knows anything.
I wrote actually that on my Facebook wall today. I went, unlearn one new thing every day. And I wrote, yes, you saw that right. Unlearn.
We're going totally on our own interpretations of this energy. And I honestly do not know how you're interpreting your experience or anybody else. We're just guessing that we know how it's all going. But I do know this, that, 2 people will look at the exact same thing and have completely different realities about it because of their wiring and the meaning they make every single thing make at what they're looking at. It could be the color of a thing that they're not even looking at can trigger a thought and a belief and an emotion that impacts the meaning of the thing they're looking at, whereas the other person won't have that trigger at all and see and experience something totally different. And that's when we look at our wiring and how different it makes us all, when we can understand better anyway, how people can disagree so strongly on any given topic. They can look at the quote unquote, look at the exact same evidence. And one person can say, how can you not see this? It's right there. And the other person says, what do you mean? How come you can't see this? And they think the other one is an idiot. It's just because of their wiring. They can't process the information the same way you do because they're not wired like you. Same the other way around. So if we could learn to appreciate that people have their opinions because of their wiring and their environment, and everybody was basically doing the best they could all the way up to now. So, but now we have the advantage of knowing about this, that we have been unconsciously wiring ourselves for years, that we can now be conscious about our thoughts, our predominant thoughts that then become things, and change the wiring by design rather than on autopilot.
Absolutely. Super, super, super. So listen, what has the world got, or what has Bob Doyle got for the world this year? What exciting stuff have we got?
I would love to just share more about the rewiring concept, because even though I'm sure that everybody listening gets it. Like, yeah, okay, we're wired. But there's a difference between like getting it, understanding, oh yeah, and then like really getting it enough where you take action on it. Right. And so I've got a webinar that's free where my whole goal is to get you to get it enough that you will in fact take action on it, and give you some suggestions of some action to take. Because I can tell you right now, no matter what it is your goal is, if it's bigger than what you've got right now, rewiring is going to be involved, because you're going to need to be somebody different than you're being right now in order to be in alignment with all of this new thing. So if you're struggling and you're going, why do I keep running up against the same thing? The same failures are the same, because your wiring hasn't changed. You're still being the same person trying to do new things. You have to learn to rewire so you can become this new person that's empowered. So I invite people to come check out that Rewire webinar just to hopefully get it on another level. And
so
if they want to do
details of that, and I can put it up there.
Yes, put it up there, put it over here, put it wherever you want to. I can say it out loud if you'd like.
Yes.
Because it's easy. meetbobdoyle.com/rewire.
I'm sure we can remember that. Yes. And I will put it up there as well.
Right. Who wouldn't want to meet Bob Doyle, right? /rewire. Right. Should be fairly easy to remember.
Absolutely. I love what you said there, though. That was the bit about where the person you have to become. So you're still using the old wiring to do new things. That's why we shrink back again, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's really
we will always stop.
Hit something with me there.
Yes, I hope that's what I want everybody to get, is that no matter what, you're going to come up against the wiring. It's going to get uncomfortable, and that's good. If people could get that that's a gift, like, oh my God, now I know how far I have gotten. So now I know how far more I need to, not instead of like, oh, this is all I'm capable of. I guess this is who I am. I guess I'm just going to have to make it work like this. It won't. You have to expand your vision. You have to see who you are different. You have to feel it, all that good law of attraction stuff, right? But by doing that, by visualizing who that person is and the success and all of it, and rehearsing it basically, then when you're out in the real world, you will be able to be that, to do that, to take action in alignment with that person that you can't do unless you start the rewiring process. So I really, really invite people to come check that out, check out the webinar, understand how they're being, because here's the thing. People can know that they're up against their wiring, and they can get into a situation of upset. And in that moment of upset, they have a choice. They can go, be in observer mode, which is what I really want people to walk away from the webinar, is how to do that. Get into observer mode and say, I have a choice. Like right now, I want to feel this way because that's my wiring. I'm on autopilot. I will go feel this way. How would I prefer to respond? What would the more empowered version of me do in this? And take a moment to see that and feel it. And then now you have the choice to either go back and be the negative way or try on this new way to do it. The trick is getting into that observer state when you're in it. Because when you're in it, you justify it like, I'll try this personal development stuff later because right now I need to tell you about this guy, right? So that's the tricky part, because your ego and your wiring will demand that you do that. But it's okay. Like, don't beat yourself up over it. I get so many people going, oh, when they're trying to change and transform, I should know this, I should know this. You do know it, but your brain isn't rewired yet. So just keep this way. But every time you beat yourself up for, I'm not getting this, you just reinforce the old wiring. So that's why, this is not an easy journey to go on alone. I'm a huge proponent of coaching or groups or some kind of support from like-minded people to keep you in the conversation, because it is way easy to go back if you're by yourself, and particularly if you're around a bunch of people who share the same mindset as you. You've attracted all these people into your life who are in some way probably in agreement. So it's not necessarily, it's simple. We're just rewiring. We're just using the mechanism that's in place. We'll just, feed it new thoughts, get a new reality. Easy peasy, except that it's not so easy because of all the emotion and the fact that the rewiring process can feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's actually in the science of getting rich is, Wallace Waddell says that, this is actually the hardest work in the world, isn't it? Because it's keeping your imagination and using your willpower internally, not externally, but using it internally to hold it in position as to what do I want. And I've certainly experienced that myself, which is what everybody else does as well. So
we just generations of training this way. I mean, we've all learned to process information similarly. As a whole, people get angry about this kind of thing or negative about this kind of thing, and we should hold on to it for about this long, right? But all of that's made up. It's all made up, and we've all just agreed on it generationally, and now it's wired in there. But we can choose to be different, and we see those people out there. We see those people who just seem unfazed by everything, who just have a smile on their face, who everything just seems to come to them, who don't care what other people think. That's a different kind of wiring, and those are the people who are out there making a difference.
Absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to see the webinar myself, and I encourage everybody who's watching this to get on that webinar and check out Bob Doyle as well. So yeah, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. I totally appreciate your time and effort for coming on here. And yeah, that's it. Any final words from Bob Doyle?
No, it was absolutely my pleasure. And all I can say is, the reason I am passionate about it, again, remember, I'm a broadcaster who is living this personal development life. I really want to entertain in things and then do those crazy stuff. But man, oh man, I cannot get away from just wanting people to know that the stuff we're talking about is real. Whether or not it sounds woo-woo or whether or not, whatever it is, if your life isn't working, just try this. Does anything we said about the rewire, does that resonate with you? You're going, yeah, I do. I am on autopilot. These are just things to consider. It's learning to be the observer of our own behavior. If there's nothing else from this conversation I'd like people to take, it's like learning to be the observer in the moment.
Love it. Absolutely love it. That's certainly what I'm going to take away as well. So thank you very, very much. Goodbye to Bob Doyle. Goodbye to the audience. And we'll see you in the next time. See you, Bob.